one chance. So to take it away would just be crushing. You train
Will you be
every
wearing
day.
your headband when you get there?
I actually won't be allowed to. It's been a decision that we're to respect the Chinese athletes. It's something I really believe in when the games are on. It's all about togetherness and equality and celebrating sport, and I don't think it would be appropriate in the games environment.
So you're happy to put it aside once you're there?
Well, it hasn't been my choice, but that will be what I will do, because at that moment in time, I'm an athlete and I need to
So
focus
who's told
on
you not to wear it?
Oh, it's kind of become a decision from the Paralympic Committee.
Lisa Forrest, you led the Australian women's swimming team at the Moscow Olympics when you were just 16. All of our athletes came under pressure from the Fraser government to boycott those Olympics. Some did, some didn't. Why did you decide to go to Moscow?
Well, it was slightly different in that the Soviets had invaded Afghanistan at the end of 1979, and the way that it was put to us was that this was Hitler. This was World War III. Malcolm Fraser got through Parliament in February of that year, of 1980, that this was the greatest threat to world peace since 1945. And so, as the amateur athletes, you were suddenly asking yourself, OK, well, if this is Hitler and this is the greatest threat to world peace since 1945, what else are we doing? And in that situation, only the Olympians were being asked to take any sort of stand against this. We were still trading wheat and wool, a mineral called rutile, and you very quickly learn about this sort of stuff, especially once you're made captain of the team. And so that was the position I took.
Even at 16?
I think, well, I have a mum that was fairly political, so she was sort of right on top of it. And, right at the beginning of the year, it was, what do you think we should do? And
so how do you feel about people now using the Beijing Games to draw attention to Tibet?
I think it's a very, very difficult situation. I feel, incredibly for the athletes that are going through what they're going through now. The problem that I have is when the IOC decides that it wants to be the UN. To suddenly decide that it's going to be the UN puts the athletes in a very difficult position. And I've heard, some, people like Evan Cosper to turn around and say, we don't ask for this to happen. The IOC knows when it gives the Olympic Games to Beijing that the athletes are going to be the meat and sandwich one more time.
So do you think they should have given it to Beijing?
I don't know. I mean, having gone through what we went through in Moscow, no. Every city is going to have the spotlight turned on it. As Sydney, Australia had the spotlight turned on it and no city is, completely free, I suppose, of any sort of criticism.
Yeah.
But I think you're being deliberately provocative.
Nova Peris, you're an Olympic gold medalist. You ran this year with the torch and you got caught up in some of the protests and you criticised them. Why?
When I was on the bus, amongst other torchbearers, you had a few people that were running around protesting and calling us ignorant. And to me, the Olympic Games is what everyone has said. It's about, bringing peace. It's only a time where people come together and they're not judged for the colour of their skin, their race, religion. It brings peace together. And it's an amazing honour and privilege to be an Olympic athlete. And, it just does make you sad when politics and, sport sort of are mixed together.
How did it compare with running with the torch for the Sydney Olympics?
It was planets apart. I ran at Uluru, I ran barefoot, on red earth, where it was just peaceful. There were hundreds and hundreds of people that came down. It was 0 degrees, and it was just magnificent, such a spiritual place. And I guess being an Aboriginal person as well, there's human rights issues here in this country, when you look at the Indigenous people. And, it's no different to anywhere else, with human rights.
Now, you've just returned from a visit to Beijing.
Yeah.
From an athlete's perspective,
yeah.
How did you find it? And how would you have felt going there as an athlete?
Well, to be honest with you, as an athlete, you're quite self-centred in a way that you become so great because that's what you do. You put all your energies into becoming the best. And if I was an athlete going back to the Beijing Olympics, you're sort of oblivious to a lot of the stuff that goes on. And when I went there, I was a spectator to my husband. He was there competing at the Happy Games. And, I think as a distant athlete, you're going to do it tough.
How? Because of the pollution?
Because of the pollution, but you're lining up, so not like one person's going to get more pollution than the other. You're all going to have to sort of go through it, and I think mentally it's the toughest person who's going to sort of, be able to block all that out and block everything else out.
But as a distance athlete, would you be worried about it, given that you've just been there?
Yeah. I had quite you know, bad upper respiratory problems. Like I have exercise-induced asthma. It's not like I was exercising every day. I was a, you know, spectator, and I suffered quite a bit from that. And when I came back, you know, you do get a lot of upper respiratory problems. I had sore throat for a good week.
Simon Balderston, you helped choose Beijing for the Olympic Games. China promised a Green Games. Has it delivered on that promise?
It actually has delivered on nearly all the commitments it made. And I should say that I guess the bottom line for Beijing is that it promised a lot. It's delivered a lot. There's a long way to go, obviously, and it was coming from a very low base. Beijing came into the sort of until the mid-90s with absolutely no environmental regulations or controls or considerations. And I can say the improvement in the Beijing environment is a lot more than we gained, we got here in Sydney. Okay, coming from different bases.
A much lower base.
Yes, much lower base, but I can say that because I was in charge of the environment program in Sydney, so I can dump on our own program and say we achieved a lot, we achieved a hell of a lot, but I've got to say that the Beijing organisers have done a fantastic job, often in the face of acknowledged ignorance and lack of cooperation by a lot of people who are doing all this for the first time, but a hell of a lot's been done. As I say, a long way to go, but it's...
But are you worried about the athletes? I mean, Jacques Rogge has said that some events may need to be postponed because of the pollution.
Well, yeah, I am a bit worried, but I think the bottom line is, and I'm afraid to say it, they'll be relying on what we relied on a hell of a lot here, the weather. And if there's wind, and if all these things, we're doing as much as we can, obviously, to get the daily pollution levels lower. If there's wind and all those things kick in and work, then it shouldn't be as bad as a lot of people think it might be. But yeah, I'm worried.
Melinda Liu, you're in Beijing. Do you think pollution will be a major problem for the athletes? What's it like there at the moment?
I think it'll be a concern for sure. Right now, I got to say, there's a lot of fear and loathing in Beijing because for at least the past week, it has been cloudy, it has been humid, it has been muggy, it has been raining part of the time, and the visibility is really bad. Pollution is definitely a problem here. I can tell you that. I've been living here for nearly a decade. Believe me, when you live here, you worry about it a lot more because there's just no getting away.
Do you think China has delivered on its environmental promises in the run-up to the Games?
I think China has done quite a bit, probably more than one could have expected just about any other developing nation's government to do. It's basically starting from a very, very low base, and they've done a lot to shut down factories and everything, cutting down on vehicle emissions, all those man-made restrictions that could be done. Those have all happened.
Well, coming up, human rights and free speech in China and Tibet. Are things better or worse in the run-up to the Olympics? Don't go away.